It's time to talk about threading text frames together. Now, I've opened up this Roux article file from the exercise folder, and I'm going to jump to the next spread by clicking the Next Spread button in the lower left corner of the document window. That's this little triangle down here. Next, I'll use the Command spacebar or Control spacebar trick to zoom in to the top of this page on the left. I see here that I have two frames, one full and one empty. This full one here on the left, down here in the lower right corner, I can see a symbol, a little plus sign. And that plus sign is an indicator that this text frame is overset. There's more text in this story that can fit into this frame. Now, we could make the text frame bigger, of course, but in this case, we want the text to flow from this frame into the empty frame. This is called threading. You thread from one text frame to another. Now, you'd think you'd use the Type tool to accomplish this. After all, you're dealing with text. But in fact, it won't work with the Type tool. Just a strange quirk of InDesign. You have to use the Selection tool. When you have the text frame selected with the Selection tool, you'll notice in the upper left corner a little box. It's very similar to the one in the lower right corner. I'm not talking about the corner handle. I'm talking about the one right next to it. And those little squares are called the ports. There's an in port and an out port. All text flows into the in port on the left and out from the out port on the right. So, to get text out of this text frame, I'm going to click on the out port with my Selection tool. Now, notice that when I do that, it loads the place cursor. And this place cursor lets me thread from one frame into another. Or it'll even let me create a new text frame. Now, notice how the cursor changes depending where I place it. Out here at the top of the page, where there's no frames at all, the cursor has a sharp edge, like a corner. That indicates that it's going to thread into a new frame. All I have to do is click or click and drag. It'll make a frame and thread the text into it. But if I move the cursor down just a little bit, I get a completely different cursor. This means it's going to thread from that frame into this empty frame here. That's what I want. So I'm going to simply click and you'll see the thread happen. Now this text story is threading from the left frame into the right one, but it's kind of hard to tell that. There's no visual indicator. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll go to the View menu, go all the way down to Extras, and then choose Show Text Threads. When I do that, I get this little colored line that goes from one port to the next. In fact, if I move this text frame down, you'll be able to see that a lot better. Okay, so we threaded these two frames together, but what if it was a mistake? What if we didn't really want to have them threaded, and we want to break it? How can we do that? It's really easy. All you have to do is double-click on one of the ports. Doesn't matter which, the in port or the out port. In this case, I'll just double-click on this in port in the upper left corner. When I do that, it breaks the link again, and you can see that this text frame on the left is now overset once more. By the way, I should point out that some people call this linking text frames, which kind of makes sense because the cursor looks like a chain link, but linking actually means something different in InDesign. Linking means maintaining a link to files on your hard drive so that if they change, InDesign changes too. And I'll talk about that in much more detail in a later chapter. So remember, whenever you're talking about text flowing from one frame to another, always call it threading.